before I start my new podcast, I thought I'll just start with a good quote which says that ships are safe at harbor, but that's not what they're built for. So I think everyone has gifts and which are unique to themselves. So I think it's required to step out of your comfort zones. So this is just me trying a new podcast with my good friend, whose name is Adarsh, and we were good friends from college. And he is moved from India to USA, and he works at almost similar fields, but he works in Lenovo. So I think this is a good time for me to know about Adarsh also. Though I know personally, it's just to know about the professional side of Adarsh. That's it. So, so welcome to my nameless show, Adarsh. How are you?
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So last time we have met was in college time. So
hmm
how did your transition happen from college to US, and what's your journey from that?
Believe it or not, it's been 10 years since we started, undergrad. I actually went to undergrad a couple of days ago and all
Mm.
back. When we graduated undergrad was 2019. It's the world before COVID, a much more,
Mm-hmm.
much, I'd say, an innocent world, I would say.
Yep.
So this all happened before the COVID pandemic. We graduated, and I graduated with my bachelor's in aerospace engineering in 2019. But
Mm.
I was kind of sure that I didn't want to do aerospace for my master's, or that's not what I wanted to do for my career. And
Mm.
I was always into programming. I taught myself Python in my final year of undergrad, and I was kind of going into that data science, machine learning rabbit hole. And it was like
Mm.
it's something that I was exploring on my own. I even audited a computer science course in my final year of undergrad. So just to see what it's like. Um, I took a year off after we graduated. So while everyone else went on to start their careers or doing my masters, I wanted to figure out what I wanted to do before I took my next step. So I was working at my family business during that time, and that's when I found, the entire process of finding data, trying to get insights out of it, very interesting. Because in my family business, no one was doing that before.
Mm.
I took our sales data. I was trying to find what's the highest. It's very simple, It's very simple data
Mm.
analysis. What's the highest selling SKU? What's the top 10 selling SKUs? What's the frequency of their sales? Are the sales peaking at any time of the year? Are the sales cratering down at any time of the year? Just basic stuff
Yep.
like that. And but no one else did it before. So when I did it
Mm.
for the first time, it was very uncharted territory for me as well because we don't really have a data science team. It was just me looking at sales records, looking at it a couple of different ways. And
Mm.
when I saw that, I started liking what I was doing. So that's what got me into quote unquote data science and supply chain as well. So when I
Mm.
started to learn more about the business, I started liking more about supply chain as well. So I thought
Yeah.
about supply chain in during undergrad as well, but I actually thought that was something you specialized in when you do an MBA or you need to do
Mm.
a degree for it. I didn't know it was accessible otherwise. So once I started doing work like this, like I started digging a little deeper and I realized that there is an entire field of math devoted to supply chains. And that's what you call
Ah.
operations research. And
Mm.
operations research is not just about supply chain, but I kind of like to think about it as applied mathematics. So it's
Okay.
not just data science, it's not just programming, Python, SQL, but it's also an entire field of math that is devoted towards optimizing supply chains. So,
So,
yeah, go ahead.
can you explain like one use case, like what you
Yeah,
have
sure.
done, maybe?
Um, think about it this. So you have Amazon, right? So if
Yeah.
Amazon and you live in the UK, so I'll use the
Yep.
UK as an example. Suppose
Mm-hmm.
Amazon wants to start their distribution network in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
They have the budget for two warehouses. So
Yeah.
where do you situate those warehouses in such a way that, the entire UK can be serviced by them effectively, or stuff like, the average or I can even turn the question on its head. How many warehouses should Amazon
Uh,
build in the UK so that the average distance from a warehouse to the Amazon customer is like
Mm.
50 kilometers, or it's less than 50 kilometers. So how many warehouses should you build? Stuff like this. It can be tactical, it can be strategic, like, it can be tactical questions, or it can be even strategic questions, which are like questions that influence the direction of the company.
Mm.
Or if
It's almost like you're saying like optimization where
exactly optimization,
like
yeah.
like Starbucks and IKEA where they know which place to
Exactly.
actually
Yeah. Where should you
know.
keep everything so that, it gets the most amount of eyeballs, stuff like that. You would
Mm.
have heard, right? In supermarkets, like
Yep.
at eye level, the most, like, they keep the stuff that they want to sell most in at the eye level,
Yep.
or, at the
Mm-hmm.
top shelves. And on the bottom
Yeah.
shelves, it's like stuff that they don't deem as important. So
Mm.
when retailers, when companies buy shelf space in supermarkets, the middle and the upper shelves get the most amount of prices. Like they are
Yep.
the most expensive to buy. So it's
Cool.
a lot of problems like this. You can solve a
That's
lot of
true.
problems like this. Even I remember during my internship, I worked on a container stacking problem. So
Mm.
a 20 foot or a 40-foot truck, what is the, like, how should you stack pallets in such a way that, you can easily take those pallets out by destination, but they also
Mm.
maintain a balance of the truck. So
Wow.
each pallet or each box weighs differently, right? And you can't just
Yep.
haphazardly put containers in a truck. You have to put them or arrange them in a specific way in order to maintain the balance of the containers. So all of this can be done with math.
Wow. That's good. It's clearly there's lots
There's a
to
lot.
talk. There's a lot to talk there.
It's a
So,
very deep rabbit
yeah.
hole that you will go into, and it's like, the size of the problems are huge, and there's a lot of
Mm.
interesting techniques in it as well.
Before we just, I think we'll go to that point, but before that, let's just go a little bit back,
Yeah.
where when you chose a university in USA, how did you choose it? Like, what was your
That
things?
Very good question. So before I choose a university, I had to figure out what I wanted to do in terms of my degree.
Mm.
So I did my master's in industrial engineering.
Mm.
Industrial engineering is kind of like, I would say, a hybrid of engineering and an MBA. It's much more
Mm.
technical than an MBA, but it's also more business facing than something like an electrical engineering or a mechanical degree. So
Mm.
mechanical, electrical, computer science, those are all like what I would call the core engineering fields. Industrial engineering is kind of a hybrid. So you kind of learn some electrical, some manufacturing, some mechanical, but you also can take some business courses from the MBA school as well. So that's what I did. Uh, I I thought, okay, having my undergrad aerospace engineering as a core competency would really help in the mechanical side of things. But I also wanted
Mm.
to learn more of this applied math stuff. I wanted to take some MBA courses as well, but
Mm.
not go fully into an MBA because I wanted to be the bridge in between management and technical ladders.
Ah, okay,
So that's a
that's
very good
cool.
spot to be. So I wanted to be more
Cool.
technical than your average MBA guy, but I also want
Mm.
more business oriented than your average master of science, hardcore engineer kind of guy. So that's what led me to take
Mm.
industrial engineering.
If
So
I remember clear, I think there was some gap you took between before you went to the college. I think
Mhm.
you took gap, and if I remember it very clear, you took a MIT credential
Yes,
course.
yeah.
So let's talk about that. Why? What happened to that?
So, so that's why I said that I was looking at things to do during my gap year, and this is during 2019 to 2020.
Mm.
This is before the pandemic. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. So
Mm.
that's when I figured out, okay, when I worked on problems from my family business, I realized, okay, supply chain is something that I wanted to do. But I also kind of wanted to try it out before I completely went all in.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this good credential on edX, which is offered by MIT. It's called the Supply Chain MicroMasters. It's based.
Mm.
So MIT is one of the best universities in the US, the best universities in the world actually.
Well, yeah.
They have uh, uh, they have a 1-year master's program in supply chain, which is the Master of Science in Supply Chain. And
Mm.
that program is split into two. They have one semester of courses and then another semester of project work, which they do with a company, which they partner with a company to do a project. What
Mm.
I did was like they offer the course part of the degree, the on the courses as
Yeah.
edX courses as well. They actually offer the first 6 months of the degree as a series of edX courses, which
Mm-hmm.
you have to do as well as write a comprehensive exam. So it's not
Mm.
just doing a course on Coursera or edX and then getting the certificate. You have to do the course, but you also have to write a comprehensive exam in the end, which is proctored, which means people from MIT will actually ask you to install stuff on your laptop and they will monitor
Mm.
you while writing the exam. So
Yeah.
you have to write that exam and you will get a credential, which is pretty valued. So that credential is good for credit in many universities as well. So when you do a Master of Science in many universities and you show this credit, you can actually
Mm.
you show this credential, you can actually get I think 3 or 6 credits. I don't remember exactly, but you can get
Okay.
academic credit, which is recognized
Mm.
by the universities, and that means you don't have to pay as much for your master's tuition because you already have 3, 4 credits.
Oh, that's good. So it's almost like I know where we everyone says that we fall into this tutorial hells and you go into
Yeah,
this script. So there are few things which are actually beneficial. Like if
there
it is
are
a proactor,
definitely. I would
I think
say
that's a.
yes. I would definitely say tutorials are useful. Like I mentioned, I am a self-taught Python
Mm-hmm.
developer. Everything I learned about Python is on my own by not just following tutorials, but also by building projects. And
Mm.
you'd have seen this advice a lot online as well, but it really is how you learn. Like,
Of
as
course.
someone who's learned everything that I know about Python and all the libraries and everything that I built from projects that I've made on my own, that's the
Mm.
best way to learn. And
Mm.
the internet is flooded with tutorials and
Yeah.
projects which you can code along. I would really, I would recommend you do it in the beginning, but there is a
Mm.
time when you should stop following guided tutorials and kind of go on your own path, build something on your own. And if it doesn't work,
Mm.
fine. You can easily figure out when, like now you have ChatGPT, you have Perplexity, you have all sorts of guides that can help you overcome your roadblock.
Mm.
I didn't have that
Mm.
when I was learning Python. So I attribute a lot of the success that I have in my career from having that skill. Like
Mm.
not just knowing Python or SQL or my master's degree, but knowing what to Google.
Yeah.
What
That's
to
important.
Google and how to Google is the most underrated skill one can have now.
I think
And
that's what it became now as prompt engineering kind
pretty
of.
much, yeah. But the
Pretty
thing is
much. Yeah.
now it's kind of being diluted because everyone has ChatGPT. They just
Mm.
if you don't get anything, they just ask ChatGPT, hey, this is not like, copy paste some code and say, okay, this is not working. How do I fix it?
Mm.
ChatGPT will fix it for you, but you are then losing out on the opportunity where you dive in, see how the actual code works, why is it,
Yeah.
figure out why it's not working, and then kind of learn that lesson in your head. You're being robbed of that opportunity. So I
Mm.
would
That's
still
true.
say knowing and that kind of stuff, that kind of skill is what ChatGPT is eroding. People are not
Yeah.
knowing what to Google anymore. People either they don't want to Google or they don't know what to Google.
That's true. That's true. If there's one thing, if I add to what Adarsh was saying, is that uh, if you know, even if you concentrate on the projects that you like for example, I personally liked about checking BP levels.
Yeah,
So my project was all about a prediction about if at all if a certain patients had so and so this, then we can predict that they'll be getting this particular diseases.
exactly.
It was a very random project which I did 6 years back. But I think doing projects also which you like,
Really
maybe
helps.
something you're interested in, which
Exactly.
I think it brings more value out unknowingly.
It
What do
does.
you say for
It
that?
does. Especially when you're doing stuff that you're passionate about, you automatically
Mm.
put a lot more effort into it. I mean, guided tutorials are good, but if you are not invested in the topic, there is a
Yeah,
very clear difference
that's
versus,
true.
doing what you're told. versus
Hmm.
doing a project where you're invested in the topic and you
Hmm.
try to figure out stuff on your own. Like
Yeah.
I think the first major project, and now that I think about it, it's not even major, but the first big thing that I did on my own is to build an ISS tracker. Now I'm very passionate
Hmm.
about space and technology. So
Hmm.
NASA has an API where it'll when you query it, it'll give you the lat long coordinates of the ISS.
Yeah.
I built a Python script to get that info to access that API, get that information, and just plot it on a map. Nothing big, but
Hmm.
I learned a lot during that. And during COVID, I also did like projects where we had the Covin API, the API like it's how the Covin app used to schedule slots. So
Yeah.
I had the API and I was able to write a Python script to automate the booking of slots because I don't know if you
Hmm.
during that the slot opening, unless we are very quick, it used to go out so fast.
Yeah.
So I built an app that continuously pinged the API like maybe 4 or 5 times in a minute, and then if it found any slots, it would automatically book them. So doing
Hmm.
projects like that, even now, like even now, like I love transit networks, I love trains. So I'm
Yeah.
doing a project right now on the London Underground, which is a little bit more bigger in scale because
Hmm.
the London Underground has a lot of open data on it. So
Yeah.
I've been experimenting with batch streaming data, putting it into like its own databases. So the entire ETL pipeline. So because I'm
That's good.
actually invested in those projects and I'm invested in I love those topics, the amount of
Hmm.
input you'll automatically put in is much higher. And that's why I say, guided tutorials are good to get started with, but
Yeah.
after your first 1 or 2 projects, you should probably move away from it and start doing your own
Hmm.
stuff. So you'll learn a lot more on your own.
That's good. That's good. So I think even like the guys, I think even in USA you'll have the same similar thing. But even in UK we have a lot of data available. Like gov.uk is something where
Yeah.
you can pull all the government data,
There's a
and there's
lot of
underground data
data out there. Like, and
out there. Yeah,
the good thing is, even if there isn't, you can easily make it on your own. Like,
that's
there
true.
is, yeah, you could like get something like a very cheap Linux computer or like, a Raspberry Pi and, write a
Hmm.
script to ping an API continuously and then, store the results in some sort of SQL database. Do it for like 1 month and there you go. You have your database. Like, I did that once
That's true.
for a flight. There is an API called the Flight Radar API, which basically tracks aircraft.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you have the app Flight Radar 24. They have an app.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, they have an
Yeah.
API. So
Hmm.
you can easily build a script that pings that API. Maybe once an hour or twice an hour. Get details of all the flights. Store it as a like you'll get it as a JSON, so you can store it in like a database, and then you can do all sorts of
Hmm.
analytics on it. That
That's true. That's true.
for
So
starters,
basically,
there's a
it's
lot of
like more about
out there.
you learned a lot on yourself more,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
then actually waiting for someone to give something. You just learned everything on your own, and that's good. So from BTech in aerospace to then you learned about the supply chain in MIT. Then
Yeah.
how you moved into the Northwestern University? How did you
North Carolina State University.
sorry,
Not
North Carolina
but
State
yeah,
University, yeah, sorry. So
I
how did you
wish.
get into that?
So you're asking how I moved there. Okay.
Like how I moved, yeah, what was
So
the
I
choice? Yeah.
So going back to my story about, searching for my master's, I decided to do my master's in industrial engineering. I applied to I basically looked at the rankings, looked at I went basically scoured through Reddit,
Hmm.
read a lot of online articles, went through I had a couple of universities in mind, so I went through each department has their own web page in a university, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
So I went to all the industrial engineering pages, read about the faculty, the kind of work they're doing, the kind of industry
Hmm.
relations the university has. The career fairs, that's very important. The career fairs, what all companies went to these career fairs. I went to LinkedIn, looked at the
Hmm.
alumni of all these universities of the degree that I'm doing. So if I'm
Hmm.
doing industrial engineering, I basically typed in ISE or industrial engineering NC State and looked at all the people who have that degree and where they are now. So I found that a
Yeah.
lot of people from NC State, they're working in Tesla or they're working in big tech like Google, Meta or Lenovo.
Yeah.
So stuff like that. So you would kind of get an idea on where all these people do or who are the major companies that are hiring out of these universities.
Mm.
Because the hiring people in the companies, they have a list of universities that they are preferring. So because of that, it's good. Like, you if you see a concentration of employees from a particular universities in a company, chances are the company does heavy recruiting from there. So you can do stuff like this. It's all in a way data analysis, right?
Yeah.
Trying to figure
So
out.
if I just group up what you just said to select a good university, you said have a good research and
Research is
network with
very
the people
important. Talking to alumni is also very important. Like,
and the career
when you
phase. Yeah.
find these alumni on LinkedIn, talk to them, send them a request.
Mm.
A lot of people are more than happy to help. Talk to them, see what they think. They'll also recommend some stuff. They'll tell you the pros and cons. So, like that, if you talk to a lot of people, then I had my list of universities that I wanted to apply
Yep.
to, and
Mm-hmm.
I kind of characterized my list into ambitious, good, and safe.
Mm.
So
Okay.
ambitious, yeah, ambitious because my background was very different. I did not do my undergrad in IFC. I did my undergrad from aerospace, so I did not
Mm-hmm.
have a lot of relevant experience per se. So
Yeah.
I went a little cautious with my approach. I
Yeah.
had like my top level universities, which are ambitious. I had my
Mm.
okay universities, which I'd be happy if I got. And then I had my safe universities, which are relatively easier to get, so to speak. And then, yeah, like I was fortunate enough to get, admitted into one of my ambitious universities. So that's how I ended up at NC State.
Mm. So once you have gone into NC State, how was the transition now? Like there would be a huge difference, like how the things were happening in India and USSR. I'm assuming how was that transition?
The big difference is learning how to learn.
That's a
Learning
good
how to
point. Yeah.
I know it seems like a cop out, but honestly,
Mm.
learning how to learn.
Yeah.
Because in India,
Mm.
I don't know if you remember, Sai, but a lot of stuff that we did during our undergrad, I was both learning. I was
That's
I was
true. It was same.
formulas.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
so
true.
that's one thing, right? Like, 'cause I had to, like, in India, the way we used to learn, maybe it would change right now, but I can only speak from the time that I was a student here. We learned to get marks, or we didn't learn for the sake of learning.
Mm.
So we learned to get ahead, or we learned to get that first rank, or that we learned to improve our GPA. In the end, that was the goal. We didn't learn to learn. Like, we didn't learn
That's true.
because of the love of the subject. And that's something that I found very different during my master's.
Mm.
Because when I went to the US to do my master's, it was for a subject that I wanted to learn. And I automatically found myself being more interested in the subject as compared to as compared to how I was during my undergrad. Not to say I wasn't
Mm.
interested in my undergrad, but because I chose to do industrial engineering and I knew what I was studying beforehand, and the MIT courses really helped. Um,
Mm.
I found I found myself going more in depth when I was learning for my masters. So I started
Mm.
learning to learn. I started learning to actually understand the topic. That mindset was a big shift for me. And I think a
Mm.
lot of
And
people who are coming from India will relate.
yeah,
Uh,
I think it's the choice you made. It's like because it's your choice, so
Exactly.
you are
It's my
you're more
choice.
invested into that.
Exactly.
Uh,
And I
that's
would
true.
also say, maturity is also a thing, right? Like, when I
Mm.
went to grad school, I was older than when I started undergrad. So,
Yeah.
your approach towards learning is different. You don't learn
Mm.
just to get that GPA, or you don't get marks just to make, anyone happy. You do it because you want to learn. Changing that mindset, like, unlearning what,
Mm.
14 plus 40, unlearning 18 years of being in that mindset, and relearning the new way of how you should actually study. That's a big change, and I think
Oh,
that's something I'll carry with me throughout my career, because you never
that
stop learning, right?
That's true. Like I think to anyone who moves from like those like from India or any Asian countries to these Western countries, I
Mm-hmm.
think that's where you find that huge gap. Like for me, my personal experience was also almost the same, but at the same time, it was about okay. No one is going to force you to learn things. It's like
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
you.
It's going to
It
force
is you. It
you
is
have
you. If you want to learn,
good,
learn.
you're
If
good.
you don't want to learn, don't learn. It's
Right.
again,
They already
it's
have your
you.
money. So
Yes.
yeah, you pretty much, you put in, you get out what you put in, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't
Mm,
put in any effort, you're not going to get anything out of it. You put in a lot of effort, you stand to gain a lot.
that's true. It's like the the I kind of use it in my company also. Garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly. Garbage in, garbage out. Exactly.
So that's something.
You get garbage results out.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, what was your inspiration to choose that university? Like, did you have someone as an ideal in that university you wanted to go to, or it was like
Not
just a choice for you?
There wasn't any inspiration per se. Like I said, I
Mm,
did my research. I had my list of ambitious universities, and those universities were up there for a reason. They had really, the research they were doing was very in line with what I wanted to do in my career.
mm,
Uh, and then the faculty there were doing the stuff that they were doing, the stuff that they were working on was very interesting to me. And a
okay.
lot of companies value that degree. Like NC
Mm,
State, for example, it's in Raleigh, which is in the middle of the Research Triangle Park area in the US. And a lot of
mm,
companies are moving to that area now. Like
mm,
companies like Apple, Meta, they're all leaving places like California, Texas, and they're all moving to the East Coast. And Raleigh is a really good place to be there because it's
mm,
also very close to a lot of good universities. Like you have not NC State, but you also have Duke University, which is one
mm.
of the Ivy Leagues. You also
Yeah.
have UNC Chapel Hill, and UNC Charlotte,
Mm.
just 2 hours away. So there's a lot of really good universities in that area, which means a lot of companies are also more likely to start up there. They're more willing to come there for hiring. So those are
Oh,
all important factors to me as well. I
that's
actually,
good. That's
the Lenovo job I have right now, I actually got it through a career fair. So that's a good thing to look at.
mm. That's a point we'll get to later. So once you have come into that university, was there any challenges? Because I personally had a lot of challenges when I came because it was the first time to another country and studying. So those 2 years were a bit very important for me. So
Hmm.
did you face any challenges when you were learning in that? Like it kind of gets alone, or sometimes that kind of culture shift you have suddenly, like where you're more responsible for yourself,
Yeah, I
kind of thing.
mean, obviously, when you move out on your own,
Mm,
that's a big shift. And,
yeah.
I was homesick for the first year
Mm,
because, like, I didn't have any family in the US. So that also was, I think,
yeah.
played a major role in it. And it was my first time this far apart from my family. Like in undergrad, I was only 5 hours away. I could easily get a train and, go back home if I wanted to. But that wasn't the case during the US, during my time in
Mm.
the US. So yeah, I mean, that was definitely a big thing. That was one of the challenges that I faced.
Like, how did you stay motivated, though, in spite of all that? Like, how did you turn it over?
Well, it's more of like, this mindset that okay, if you get through this now, you can get through anything, and just knowing why you're there. Like you want to build a
Hmm.
career, you want to build the career that you always wanted, and that to get to that point, it's not easy, but things that are worth it are rarely easy, right?
That's
So,
good. Yeah, that's true. So, before we go to the career side, so what are the three things you want to say to anyone who wants to go from India to US? What are the three things he has to remember, he or she?
three things that you have to remember. Get ready to slog and work hard, because the US, for all the problems that it has, I would also say the US is definitely a meritocracy. If you
Mm-hmm.
are if you are having the capability, and if you're able to make it big there, the US will reward you, right? Like
Mm.
if you are smart and if you put in the effort and if you genuinely make it work, the US will give you as much in return. So definitely
Mm.
go, definitely take the chance to, when you're going for your master's, definitely take the chance to learn as much as you can, and keep sight of your priorities. And homesickness will be there, but you'll
Mm.
have your network of friends, you'll have kind of like your second family there to rely on. You'll automatically build that because you're not alone there. So
Mm.
that's one thing. Second thing, what would I say? I'm actually thinking now. Um,
That's fine. Like, okay, I think this. I think you already said that one thing is always network a lot.
Network a lot. Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Not just in terms of, oh, okay, if I network, I'll only then I'll get a job. But
Mm,
try to build genuine connections. Like
yeah.
people don't want to seem as if you're talking to them only because they can give you a job or a referral. Talk to them
Mm,
with the intention of knowing what they do, just knowing the kind of work that they do.
yeah.
Build that connection, make it an organic growth. That will really help. That
That's
really
true.
helped in my case as well.
Yeah, and the
But
third thing you said was about going to carry your face and like meeting in person, kind like whenever you
yeah,
get a chance to meet
exactly.
anyone in
Yeah,
person. Yeah,
exactly.
so I think those are the 3 points. Those are good things. So, okay, let's put now education things on hold. I think we have spoken too much
Yeah.
on that. So once you come to the job side, like how did you prepare for opportunities in US? Like how did you start preparing?
Well, the first thing is to apply. And the one thing that
Mm-hmm.
you will get is imposter syndrome. I
Mm-hmm.
found that I had that a lot. Like
Yeah.
sometimes you'll see these job roles and you're like, okay, can I do that? Like I'm not sure if I'm good enough for that.
Mm.
Put it away. Don't know. You like don't even think about it. If you see a job,
Yeah.
you like it, and you think you're a good fit, apply. You never know
Mm.
because
Yeah.
it literally costs you nothing to apply. But if you don't apply for that job, you will then, maybe 2 years down the line, you will have that thought in the back of your head saying, oh, what if I had applied? I could be somewhere else right now. So definitely
Mm.
apply to all the jobs that you see. Tailor your resume. Like all of this applies. There is the ATS system there, which I am not a fan of, but it is what it is. It is how the world
Yeah.
works. You cannot change.
Mm-hmm.
So adopt your resume, tailor your resume to the job role. That really helps.
Mm.
If you can go to career fairs, I would really, really recommend that. Like, if you can
Yeah.
actually get face time with the people who are doing the recruiting, do it
Mm.
because that really helps. Because when you're just applying online, you are one amongst hundreds or thousands of candidates that are putting in their application. But when you actually meet someone, or when you
Mm.
actually meet someone and when you talk to them, you leave an impact and they are more likely to remember you. Like, they are
Yeah.
more likely to remember a face than just a name or a resume. So the
Mm.
impression that you can make is much higher. So that's why career fairs are very important. Career fairs are
That's
important.
true.
Yeah, career fairs are important because companies regularly go there to hire talent. And if you can go there and talk to people, they might give you a call back. The That's one thing. The university that you go to, they usually will have some sort of portal where companies can advertise their jobs. Do that. That I definitely go
Mm.
through that. A lot of my peers did not even know about it, which I know, which is not great. I found my first internship through that portal. And then I got my
Mm.
full-time job through the NC State Career Fair because Lenovo came there. I met them and then they called me for an interview. So definitely do that. All of these are very important stuff.
Yeah,
And
that's
always,
true.
have a, I am I'm not saying you have to be charming, but be sociable, be presentable because literally here the first impression is the best impression. If you make a really
Mm.
good first impression, that's a good
Yeah.
thing to go by. Like, that will leave a mark.
Mm.
So
That's true.
definitely, yeah, definitely work on that. Work on your elevator pitch. Have something ready to go. Like, have
Yeah.
like a short paragraph ready on to sell yourself. Like, why are you an ideal candidate for that job?
Mm.
So having all this
Like
prepared
just
goes a long way.
that's true. Just to add a point on that which you said, or also about imposter syndrome, you said very clearly that just apply. I think I was in the same phase where I was caught up in that phase of like, okay, I'm not eligible, or it's not
Exactly.
right for
Yeah.
me. You're just caught up in that unless slowly I
Don't,
understood
yeah.
that okay, all you're
Don't
going to get
self-eliminate
is
yourself. Exactly.
yeah,
Don't
exactly,
don't self-eliminate yourself. If you do have to
yeah,
be eliminated, let the recruiter do it. Or let the company do it. Don't do it yourself.
yeah.
Because
So I made a choice saying that either there's only two things going to happen. It's yes or no.
exactly.
Or
Getting a
so
no,
instead of
getting a rejection is not the biggest thing in the world.
yeah, that's true. And I think I started after getting rejection, I started asking, okay, can you give me a feedback? And there were many, out of it, if I have all the rejections, there were many people who were happy to actually give me a
Yeah.
feedback saying, okay, these are the things we were looking for, but I think you didn't have this and so skills.
Yeah.
I think that was very helpful for me to apply
Yeah,
for the
it'll help
next
you
one.
learn. It'll help you get better, right? In the end,
Yeah,
that's what matters.
that's true.
Every I
That's great
like
points
I
actually.
like to think about every interview. You can always take something away from an interview, even if you don't get the job. Like,
Hmm.
even if you don't end up getting the job, you still can get feedback or you can still find areas to improve. So
Yeah.
that's you can take that away from an interview, right? So that's why I'm saying, even if you are interviewing, there is nothing you can lose in an interview. You always stand to gain something. Even if it is not a job, it's something
Hmm.
that you can improve on yourself or you can improve on your resume or improve in your communication. You can always get that.
That's good. So before we were, like we go to how you got into Lenovo, like I see that you have worked in other companies too, right? Like
Hmm.
you worked in on a startup, I think,
Yeah.
in a small company. So just explain how was that experience before you went to Lenovo?
So the company that I work for, I interned there. It's called Bob Barker. It's not a startup,
Hmm.
but it's a family-based company. It's like a family's like literally the Barker family. They started it, and it's a very interesting place. Like they make stuff. They make like how in prisons you have like
Yep.
toothpaste, you have like shaving kits, you have like the mattresses, the
Mm-hmm.
prison uniforms. They make that. Everything you find in prison, this
Hmm.
company makes it, and it's very interesting as well because they like even the smallest of things you kind of have to re-engineer to make it work in a prison. Like shampoo bottles, you can't have normal shampoo bottles. You have to have everything in a transparent liquid or in a transparent cover because
Hmm.
prisoners might use it to hide contraband. Or even razors, they can't be hard razors. They have to be flexible when the
Oh.
blade has to be individually removed because only then because otherwise they might hide the blade and use that to attack someone else or hurt someone. So
Hmm.
when you're creating products for a very specialized use case like prisons, everything changes. The normal rules don't apply, and the normal
Yeah.
supply chains don't apply as well. So
Of
that was a
course.
very good internship for me to get my feet wet, essentially, in how a global supply chain works. Because a lot of our vendors were in China, Taiwan, like they were in Asia, and we had to get a lot of stuff from them. And
Mm-hmm.
my internship was also right in the middle of the port congestion right after COVID. All the Asian ports were congested, and it was
Hmm.
lead times to get stuff from them were very long. Like what used to take 2 or 3 months now used to take 6 or 7 months to get from them. So how do
Uh,
companies adapt to
hmm.
to deal with larger lead times? If it takes you longer to get something, you then every time you're able to get something, you buy 3 or 4 times the amount that you usually get, right? Like,
Hmm.
for example, you buy milk every day. Now, if for
Yeah.
some reason, or if there's a strike, or if there's bad weather, you're not able to go to the store every day. So,
Hmm.
you go to the store today, instead of going to the store every day, you buy 3 or 4 cartons of milk and keep it in your fridge so that even if you're not able to go the next few days, you're still good. That's what companies
Hmm.
did. And that's what every company did. So suddenly now manufacturers were seeing a huge uptick in production. Vessels were like, shipping companies were seeing a huge uptick in demand where they literally had no space to put stuff on their ships. So that
Hmm.
contributed to the port shortage as well. Like ports, for example, it's not enough that the ship gets to the port, but you also need infrastructure in the port to unload the ships, put it on trains or put it on trucks. And there's a truck driver shortage going on as well. So everything was being battered. There were capacity issues everywhere. And how did a company like this, who had truly global supply chains, deal with issues like this? Do they buy more? Now, if I buy more, like for even going back to the milk example, if I buy 3 or 4 days worth of milk and after 2 days the milk got spoiled,
Then
only
it's.
half the stuff that you bought was went to waste. Same thing for
Hmm.
companies. Like if it is perishable goods, if they buy a lot of stuff and it goes out of, and if some stuff perishes, then it's basically wasted money. Or if they buy
Hmm.
too much of something and they end up not needing that much, they are not able to sell the remaining. That is dead inventory on their hands. They've spent money on it,
Yeah.
but they can't get any money out of it, so they have to scrap it. So
Hmm.
how do you avoid stuff like this? And The scrapping, dead inventory, a lot of inventory management problems. It's a lot of stuff that I work at Lenovo as well.
Oh, nice. So it's almost like you're optimizing the best way, like
Exactly. How much
in
do you buy?
each.
You're essentially solving for X, where X is how much do you buy so that you don't run out, but you don't have too
Hmm.
much on your hands as well.
Okay. Do you think like, there are multiple, it's inventory systems and stuff who do their own
There is
optimization?
entire
The
branch
whole,
mathematics and statistics
yeah,
that go behind this. They are not
yeah,
random. They
they're
are,
all random.
yeah, you don't just pull a number out of thin air and saying, okay, I'm going to stock this much. There is
Hmm.
entire field of demand planning, forecasting, statistics, probability distributions that go into getting that
Yep.
number, that magic number of how much
Hmm.
you're willing to buy. That kind of modeling, I would say, is also an art. Like, it's not just a science, it's equal science and equal art because a
Hmm.
lot of it relies on human intuition. It's
Yep.
not just, it's not very cut and dry as an equation where you solve for X and you get the number. There's
Number.
a lot of human
Hmm.
input involved as well. What's your risk tolerance? You can't get an equation
Hmm.
for that. Am
That's
I
true.
more tolerant to risk or do I want to be conservative? Like, am
Hmm.
I so in the let's take the milk example. If
Yeah.
you're more tolerant to risk, you wouldn't buy 3 or 4 containers. You would just buy 1 or 2 containers, and then you will see, okay, from there what I'll deal with it after 2 days. So you're taking that
Hmm.
risk that after 2 days you may not be able to get more, but you're not taking a lot of risk in keeping your inventory. Milk won't go bad in 2 days. So
Yeah.
you're
Hmm.
guaranteed to use all of your inventory.
Hmm.
Now, if you're the risk averse type, if you don't want to take risk, then you would then buy 5 or 6 cartons of milk one day. So you would
Hmm.
never run the risk of running out of inventory, but now you run the risk of spoiling, the milk's getting spoiled or wasted inventory. And you've basically spent a lot of money already in stuff that you may not end up using. So that's the
Hmm. That's
cost
true.
of being risk averse. Like, and
Hmm.
COVID really helped teach us all that, right? COVID was the best
Hmm.
example, I would say, to help teach us about supply chain stability. Do you want to pay
Hmm.
more and not have risk, or would you pay less but entertain an amount of risk? Who makes that decision?
Yeah.
So, who makes that call? That is
Hmm.
equally an art because that's not something you can program, or that's not something you can, unless you can tell the future, that's not something we can do.
I think it comes to the experience
It
once
comes
you
through
are in that.
experience, it comes through
Hmm.
willingness to spend money, it comes
Hmm.
through your risk appetite as a company.
Yeah.
That's why the
That
people at the top are paid the big bucks to make
because they
these
make.
kind of calculated risk decisions.
Yeah.
So
That's true.
the chief procurement or supply chain officer would then tell us, okay, make sure it's okay. I would like rather spend the money but not go out because the cost of running out is higher than the cost I would spend in getting a lot of
Hmm.
stuff beforehand, like that.
So what was your role in this whole thing? Like what
My
were
role,
you doing?
my role in this was to create mathematical models that model all those risk scenarios. So my
So
job was to create mathematical models that, have you heard of scenario planning before?
no,
So
no.
scenario planning is basically when you look at, like, you are at a crossroad and then there are three
Okay.
possible options in front of you. I'm just saying
Mm-hmm.
three out of thin air,
Okay.
the n
Mm.
possible options.
Yep.
What are the cost and benefit of those n options? Like, if I go through path
Mm.
one, what's my cost? What's my benefit? If I go through path two, what's my cost? What's my benefit? Similarly, if I go through path N, what's my cost? What's my benefit? Like, I basically plan out all those scenarios, create models, like, try to figure out what gives us the most likelihood of profitability, what's the probability of each of these scenarios happening. I do all the math,
Yeah.
I make all the models, I present it to management. Now they, based
Mm.
on my findings and my models, they will make a call.
Mm, that's interesting. So
Yeah,
it's almost like you're giving all kinds of hypotheses,
exactly.
what works, and then the call is them, but
The call is theirs, yes. But I
you
do
say
all the
this is the end
modeling.
result.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I do all the modeling. I do the data analysis. I build dashboards that kind of
Mm.
give them that idea. That
Oh,
was what I was
interesting.
doing during the internship.
Cool, cool. That's interesting. So from that company, how did you get in the chance of going into Lenovo? Because I see you did a rotation program and everything.
Yeah,
So how did you get that chance?
literally a career fair. They came to recruit
Career
in
fair.
NC
Okay.
State. I was there,
Hmm.
a suit and tie, gave them my resume, talked to them about
Yeah.
all the stuff that I did during my internship, and
Yeah.
they gave me an interview call. And I went, I went. You have those days, right? I think in the UK they call it open days.
Open day. Yep. Yep.
Open, yeah.
Yeah.
Company basically ask you to come in. They'll do like interviews, they'll do tests and all that stuff, right? We had one of
Mm-hmm.
those days when there, and yeah, they gave me an offer to join the
Oh,
program.
that's cool.
So ever since I joined there, I've been going around in different. I've been rotating in different organizations as well. I was in the first.
Mm.
I was in the inventory team first, inventory and product management team, where
Yeah.
I basically automated a lot of their tasks. I made dashboards. I made a lot of like I was able to give them insight on where they can improve operationally without going into too much
Mm.
detail, of course. But
Yeah.
I gave them insight on where they can improve operationally, and what are the steps that they can take to reduce our uh, dead inventory, stuff like that. I
Mm.
then moved into another engineering role for my next rotation, where uh, we worked with one of the biggest cloud customers in the world. We
Mm.
you know
That's
you
cool.
probably you that you probably use their products. One can't can't say the name.
Yeah.
You know where to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, we worked with them, and this was a very good experience for me because I was able to work with a big cloud customer, and I was had that customer interaction. Um, Worked with a lot of our manufacturing data, was able
Mm.
to get a lot of insights out of that, to know where our weaknesses are, I basically figured out why we take a long time to manufacture some stuff, how can we reduce
Mm.
that time. So that's what led me to the product and data science pathway
That's
because
good.
I was in a good position in Lenovo, knowing the business as well as the engineering and manufacturing data that I could combine them to get
Mm.
some unique insights. So rather than
That's
people
good.
being siloed in business and manufacturing and engineering teams, I was that guy in the middle who knew everyone everywhere.
Mm.
So I was able to leverage that connection, those relationships to you know, basically help everyone work together more effectively.
That's true. Like in UK, we say the same thing called like graduate roles, where you enter the company and they give 6 months or 4 months.
Yeah,
You actually
exactly.
work
Yeah,
with
yeah,
each department, and then I think it's like 2 years they
exactly.
rotate you,
Yeah,
and then I think based on your choice, if you said you wanted to work in
yeah,
that department, you get a role in that department
exactly.
kind of thing. That's really interesting. But the same thing, the opposite side in small companies is that you might be the only tech guy, but you still actually collaborate with multiple people.
Exactly.
Like,
Yep.
uh,
There's a lot of case like that has happened a lot actually because there were teams that I went to that didn't have like data people,
mm,
and they only had I was the only data, quote unquote, data guy there. So that was a little difficult because you essentially have to set up your own pipelines, you have to maintain them. And the harder part is when you leave the team after the rotation, there's no one to maintain that. So you have to keep maintaining.
the,
So I'm
mm,
maintaining stuff that I built maybe 1.5, 2 years ago because there's no one to maintain that. So that's one con, I would say. But overall, I would say the learning experience has been worth it.
yeah, that's true. Like, that's a really good thing. So I know that Lenovo is known for its innovation and things. Like, how do you stay updated with this kind of? Because every day I open, there is a new thing, and there's always something coming up. Like, how do you stay? Like, what do
Always new
you?
problems. Every day
Okay.
you see innovation, we see supply chain problems. So
Hmm.
every time
That's
you
true.
see a new product, there's probably a supply chain issue that's associated with that product, and that's something we have to fix. So
Hmm.
if you're talking about are you talking about like business cases or are you talking about keeping updated on technologies?
I'm talking more about the technology side.
Tech stack, essentially, when I see new issues, I try to see how I can solve it. So a
Okay.
lot of stuff that we're able to solve, like now I'm starting to get into a little bit more data engineering kind of space where
Mm.
I'm scheduling pipelines using Airflow. I'm using
Mm.
Kafka to get streaming data from our manufacturing line. So it's essentially, if you have an issue and what can you use to solve the problem. So I work the problem and I
Yeah.
see what are the tools that I can use to fix that problem, and I learn
Mm.
on the go, pretty much.
Yeah, I
Well,
think
I
that
think
I can relate to that point
exactly.
where,
I'm pretty
of
sure you can.
course.
Yeah, you did a project, right? Where you built a web app to you
Mm.
built a web app to know all the stocks and everything, right?
Stocks. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. So you didn't learn that during undergrad or your masters. You
For
basically
sure.
you had a problem
Mm.
and
Mm.
you wanted to build a solution. Like
Simple. Yeah.
you saw a problem in front of you and you dove in deep. You basically found out what is it that you need to build a solution and you learned whatever you
Mm.
need to learn and built it. That's
That's
the
true.
same thing.
Yeah, that's true. Like
That's the
it's
biggest skill that one
like
can have.
mostly something very advantage in small companies is that you can tell that okay, I can build this and they can give you time.
Exactly.
It's not like you don't have deadlines and stuff,
Yeah.
but it's always good to say that this is my idea and this is what I think it can solve. And if
Exactly.
the team is really supportive to that, okay, Sai, like okay, do it.
Yeah.
You just do it.
That's
You're
why
giving
having a
that.
very supportive manager and the team is very important.
Hmm,
Like
that's true.
same thing, you say you were given a problem, but you don't have a supportive manager or team, that work culture can get ugly pretty fast.
Yeah, that's true. So what are you most like passionate about things like in terms of technology or business side? Like I know I can see now from what I have heard is that you like supply chain problems and
Yeah,
whole
problem
pipeline.
solving is, I would say, what I'm into. Now,
Hmm.
whether that means that I will, like right now, I'm an IC, I'm an individual contributor. But I also want to get to a point where I know I'm a people manager, I'm interfacing with engineering and business teams on the daily. So that's where I see myself going. And if
Hmm.
you
That's
ask me
good.
what's my favorite, problem solving, I would say, is what I really want to do. If you give me a problem and I can wrestle with it and try to figure out a solution for it, that plays to my
Hmm.
strengths. And it
That's
doesn't
true.
have to be just an engineering problem or it doesn't have to be just a business problem. It can be any
Hmm.
sort of problems. But as long as it stimulates my mind, it's something that challenges me and something that makes my head spin, I know I'm going in the right
Hmm.
direction.
Oh, that's great. So we went from your college, then we went to your
Work,
credentials, then we went to work, and so as we are wrapping up this podcast, like, what's your advice for any aspiring people who want to work in Lenovo? What's the three skills you would say that okay, these are the three skills important if you're applying for
be very
Lenovo?
data literate.
Okay.
And this is not just for people who go into data science or engineering or something.
Yeah. Mm.
Being data literate, at least knowing SQL will get you very far. Like,
Mm.
knowing because data is literally the currency of the future. It's the new black gold, as
The new oil.
the new oil.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So knowing how to, deal with data and knowing how to deal with data is a skill that'll get you really far. Like basically gone are the times when just knowing Excel and VLOOKUPs and pivot tables is enough. If you really want to be competitive, SQL is the way to go. At
Mm.
least knowing SQL. That's you don't have to, be scheduling data pipelines or knowing Python or doing machine learning. You don't have to do that, especially if you're going in a business role. But being a little data literate will really help not just you and your team, but when you're talking to actual data teams, that conversation will go a lot smoother. So definitely build that
Mm.
skill set, I would say.
That's good. And what's that one quality, for example, like Amazon, it's more about the leadership skills they have 12 leadership skills. So what does like Lenovo have that quality where they're looking for candidates,
Problem solving. They
problem solving?
they
Okay.
expect you to solve any problem that they throw at you.
Mm.
And they want you to ask for help. They don't expect that you should solve all the problem. Like they don't just give, okay, Sai, this is your problem. You have to solve it. They don't expect you alone to solve it. You can ask
Mm.
for help, and a lot of people will help you. But you should. They expect you to tackle a problem with like some good thought. You should have that problem solving ability, that creativity. Having that skill will
Okay.
take you far. Is what I've seen so far.
That's good. So just as you said, data literate, problem solving,
Yeah,
and do you,
communication.
and I think
Not
good
problem.
communication. Oh, sorry, go on.
Communication. Being able
Communication.
to,
Yeah.
you can solve all the problems in the world. If you're not able to communicate that effectively to your manager and his manager or his or her manager or their manager above them,
Hmm.
it doesn't matter. People have to
Yeah.
get visibility, especially when you're talking to directors or VPs. They are having hundreds or tens of hundreds of problems thrown at them every day. If you want to stand out, you have to be a good communicator. So,
Sell your idea, basically.
yeah, you have to sell yourself, you have to sell your solution. Having that skill is very important, especially now. If you want
Hmm.
them to remember you, you have to work on your communication skills. And it's not something that schools or colleges or universities teach us. It's something that
Yeah.
you learn on your own, you learn on the job, or you learn outside of academia. But so if you do
Hmm.
that early on, it'll really help.
That's good. So great points actually. Data literate, problem solving, and good
Good
communication. I think
communication.
that's something we can all start
Yeah,
working on that.
pretty much. I
Okay, I
mean,
think
you can,
that's
anyone
good.
can build. So I just saw this
Yeah.
quote recently on the internet. I mean, anyone can make a chart. Anyone can build a
Hmm.
Power BI dashboard. But if you want that Power BI dashboard or chart to make an impact, not everyone can do that. So
Hmm. That's
having
true.
that skill in conveying the story in as few words as possible, but also making it make sense is what matters.
Hmm. That's great. Okay, that's really good points. I'd say having good impact, not only just doing the tech stuff, but trying to sell that to
Yeah,
the people who are not like non-technical people. That's a really good
exactly.
quality you can have. I think that can take you to where any industry you want to work in.
Pretty much.
It's that's good. So last question.
Yep.
This is something now sounds now we're wrapping up the whole thing. What's one book you would say that you have read the last time, or maybe one book you think it had large impact on you? Because I know we do. I don't know if you have stopped reading, but I do know you were reading before.
I
So,
do read, but it has gone down a little bit since work.
okay,
Uh, I do
cool.
read more, but I would say one book that really stood out. Actually, I'm going to give you two books. One book
Okay.
that really stood out to me was Shoe Dog. It's created by Phil
Phil
Knight,
Knight. Yeah,
the
yeah.
founder of Nike, how he built Nike. That's a really inspirational book. It literally reads like a, it reads like a fiction novel. It's that good. That's one.
Hmm.
Another book that I would suggest is The Toyota Way. This is more of
Hmm.
process improvement engineering kind of stuff. It's not very technical, but it tells you about, it tells you how habits and certain, it's kind of like atomic habits. It tells you how habits and certain, doing things a certain way can really help a process be streamlined in the long run. So if you're in the manufacturing and engineering space, that's a really good book to read. But definitely
Uh,
read Shoe Dog. That's a very good book.
yeah, I think I would bring Shoe Dog. I think I've read twice or thrice because it was kind of
Yeah.
inspiring for me.
There's also
It
another
kind
book.
of
There's also
yeah.
another
Yeah.
book. I think it's by the chief marketing officer of Nike. Uh, I actually
Oh
don't.
yeah, I think
What's it
he
called?
goes from the intern to he goes to
Yeah, I think you
uh,
posted this about this book.
yeah, I
Maybe not.
posted about this.
I forgot
Yeah,
the name
yeah,
of this book though.
I
Uh,
forgot it. I forgot the name. I think
forgot the name, but yeah,
I'll tag it somewhere.
yeah.
But for sure,
But that's good.
Yeah, those are three good.
That's a
That's
very good
good
book as
books.
well.
That's cool. That's cool. So I just want to say thank you for doing this. I know this is the first time for me doing it, but
No
thank you for
problem.
that.
Happy to help.
If there's something, if I want to say to you is that during college was you were that one guy where I was secretly looking at and trying to say because you were going and doing all these activities. Like I was not the guy who was admired by marks. I was the guy who was admired by people who were doing these activities. Like we have friends who do activities like public speaking, and you were the guy who were doing these events, public speaking events, and you were doing coding events, all this kind of things. And I was like, this guy's going somewhere, but I don't know where. But I was a guy, the secret admirer, like trying to look, this guy's doing something. And you were kind of inspiring people. I don't know how many, but you are inspiring me to do something for
But
me for
that means
sure.
a lot. I had no idea, but
Like, that's what I'm saying. I said I was a secret admirer.
thank
Like I never
you.
said it to that, but I was just a secret guy.
In
But
the
anyway,
end,
thank you for doing that.
yeah, in the end, it's all about trying to figure out what you like. I know what you
Yeah.
like to do and, pursuing your passion.
Cool. That's cool. That's cool. So that with that, I'll just wrap it up, and I'll just meet you in few minutes then.
Yep.
Yeah.